Good morning to all participants and viewers. My name is Darsinah Pedro. The first author and the corresponding author is Johan Severinus Tati. We are from Politeknik Kota Kinabalu. The topic of our study is social functions of code switching in ESL classroom. Let us dive into Sabah. Sabah is known as the second largest state in Malaysia, with 52 indigenous ethnic and sub-ethnic groups, namely Dusun, Kadazan, Murut, Rungus, Bajau, and immigrant groups. Sabah also prominently known with its diversity of ethnics, cultures, languages, and identities. Moving on, speaking two or more languages is a habitual practice. Code switching is a natural occurrence in Sabah. Moving on to our next slide, the research objective. This study investigates the social functions of code switching in the ESL classroom, particularly in Politeknik Kota Kinabalu, Sabah. Now, the methodology used in this study is a qualitative approach and structured interviews of 10 Polytechnic students. They were then interviewed within 10 to 15 minutes and recorded. The recordings were then transcribed and analyzed using thematic analysis. Now let's take a look at the findings of this study. The findings reveal that students use code switching first to express the identity. It appeared that code switching fostered a learning environment where students' identities were readily accepted. Now here is an example. The teacher asked a question, and as one of the students answered the question, the student answered a word in English and immediately uttered a Malay word to the teacher, seemingly to express their identity. Second, code switching is also used to establish relationships. In the classroom observed, code switching also seemed to be used by the students to establish relationships among them. However, the use of code switching depends on students' comfort level. Third, code switching also used for comments. The present data found that students also use code switching for another social functions, namely to comment on exercises or activities or events relating to the practice, not just from a pedagogical perspective, but rather in a social way. 4. The Polytechnic students in Sabah tends to code switch from English to Sabah Malay dialect to translate meaning at various levels of languages, comprising words and social functions. So code switching is used as the means of translation when English words were unknown and mainly to interact with your friends. Next, code switching seemed to be used by students to help them understand vocabulary items, especially the English language. Code switching is used to overcome a lack of knowledge to retrieve the lexical items in English. Meanwhile, respondents also code switch from Sabah Malay dialect or Malay to English for the standard terms used in English. They tend to use English words to substitute the forgotten words in Malay. As the saying goes, practice makes perfect. Code switching is an alternative technique for the respondent to practice speaking English. The classroom observation and interviews have revealed that the students usually code switch to translate, help with vocabulary, and practice speaking in English, and do code switch because of having difficulty speaking English. One of the crucial findings of the interview is that the students reason to code switch for translation purposes. They translate from English to Malay to explain something quickly and steadily. To conclude, the current study looks into the code switching habits of multilingual Polytechnic students in Sabah. The study also aims to demonstrate the advantages of code switching as an interactive learning strategy for developing a classroom speaking discourse because it allows students to communicate and maintain excellent oral performance in ESL classroom interaction. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening.